Hello guys, and welcome to this project where we are going to build an image slider using HTML, CSS and JavaScript. This is a beginner project for my HTML, CSS and JavaScript subscribers. It's been a while since I created any project using HTML, CSS and JavaScript, so I thought today I will do something very simple yet beautiful for you guys. And maybe at the end of the video we will deploy this project. All right, so let me quickly show you a demo of how this works. As you can see, we have this beautiful image in the back, which is the bigger image, and we have these controls, right? So we can click to show the next, and we have this beautiful animation, okay? And we are going to do all this using HTML, CSS and JavaScript. All right, so this is what we are going to build. If you are excited, then I'm excited as well. I hope you learn something from this project, and we have a lot to do, so let's get started. So go onto your computer and then create a folder for this project. I'm going to call my image slider, and open this project or this folder with your code or text editor. Okay, I'm using VS Code. And so let's go ahead and then create the files. First, we are going to have a HTML file, so index.html. I'm going to have my CSS file as well, which is index.css. And lastly, I'm going to have my JavaScript file, which is index.js. Okay, you can call it whatever you want, but I just chose to call them all index with their respective extensions. All right, so let's get back to our HTML. But before that, let's have a folder here called assets, which is going to be the folder that holds our images. Okay, so I'm going to come here and then copy these images into our assets folder. Okay, so I have these images named 1, 2, 3 to image 7, and I just did that for you to really understand what is happening on the screen. Okay, I just want you to really understand how everything works. Okay, at the end of the video we are actually going to use the images that you see in the finished project, right? But for now I really want you to understand everything. That's why I created these images in Photoshop for you guys. Okay, all right, so let's get back to our HTML. And with Emmet, I'm just going to do exclamation tab, and it gives me this boilerplate. Let's give our project a title. I'm going to call mine beautiful image, come on, beautiful image slider using HTML, CSS and JavaScript. Perfect. All right, we can go ahead and then let me leave a comment and link our CSS file, which is the index.css. And lastly, I want to go ahead and link my JavaScript file as well, which is index.js. Perfect. All right, now let's have the markup for our project. Okay, I'm going to have a section which is basically going to wrap around the whole project, right? And inside that I'm going to have a menu where it's going to have list items. Each list item is going to be a slide. All right, now let me give this list item a background. Okay, a background image. So I'm going to give it a style background, and since we are going to have an image as the background, we are going to use a URL. We go into our assets and choose the first image. Okay, I'm going to center it, so center, and then cover. All right, so we give it a background position of center, and then a background size of cover. Basically that's what is happening here. Now inside the slide, okay, I'm not going to give it any class because there's not really any big project, so we can just target the tags instead of giving them classes, right? Inside the li, I'm going to have a div with a class of details. I'm going to have an h1 which will say slide 1. Below that, I'm going to have a paragraph, and I'm just going to do lorem 15. Okay, and that's with emit. You can do lorem 20, lorem 100, whatever, and it's going to give you that number of words. And lastly, I'm going to have a button which will just say show more. All right, so that's our first slide. So we can just go ahead and do Shift Alt and then the down arrow to duplicate this a few times. And I just want 7 slides, so let me count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Perfect. All right, so we have the first image for the first slide. The second slide is going to have the second image as the background image, and the heading is going to say slide 2. The third one is going to have the third image, so image 3, slide 3. The fourth one is going to have image 4, slide 4. Let's have our fifth one, 5. The sixth one, 6. And lastly, let's have our 7th. Right, and that's it. Perfect. All right, so let's see what we have so far. And with this extension, which is live server, you probably have that already right here. With that extension, I can go ahead and then click this go live, and it's going to open this project in my default browser, and this is what we have so far. Okay, there's the finished project, and this is what we are currently working on. Perfect. All right, so now I think we can go ahead and then work on the CSS. And when it gets to CSS, you know, I like to make this smaller so that we see what's happening in the browser. All right, so let's target every element on the page and give them a margin of 0 and a padding of 0 as well. Also, I'm going to give the list style none. Okay, I'm going to make it none. You can see we have some bullets for our LIs. Okay, we have some patterns, some margins as well. So let's zero those out. We save, and this is what we have. All right, now let's target the body. I don't like this font, so let's quickly go to Google Fonts and grab Montserrat. That's what I'm going to use. And so I'll just get font and then copy this into my HTML. Right, let's be quick with this project. It's nothing to waste time on. So right here, let me leave a comment. Montserrat font, right, from Google Fonts. Perfect. So we just do that, and then now our font family, come on, font family should be the Montserrat font that we just copied, and it's a sans serif font. So yeah, perfect. All right, let's give a line height of 1.6, and I'm going to make the background darker, so 222 should be good, and I'm going to set overflow to be hidden. Perfect. All right, that's what we have. Let's continue and then get the section which wraps around the entire slide. Okay, so give that a width of 68 rem, a height of 40 rem, a background of 555, a hex code of 555, and I'm going to position that to be absolute. It's going to be 46. It's going to be 46 from the top and 50% from the left. Now let's transform and then translate. -50% on the x and the y axis, and this is what we have. And the reason that I didn't give it a top of 50 was because I want it a little bit up. Okay, just like you see on on the screen. I want it just like this because the controls, that's the previous and the next arrows, are going to be down here. I hope that makes sense. All right, now let's continue and then target the slice. Okay, and that's the li. Each li is a slide, right? And each li, if you remember, each li has the background image. All right, so let's get the li and give those a width of 7 rem, a height of 10 rem. Let's position them absolute, and it should be 70% from the top and 60% from the left. Come on, let's transform and then translate. Negative 40% and then negative 30%. All right, this is what we have. Perfect. I'm going to bring this to the right side so that we see what's happening there. Now let's give the border radius of 1.5 rem, a font size of 0.5 rem, and the box shadow of 2 rem for the x-axis, 2 rem for the y-axis, 2 rem for the blur, and RGBA of 0.5. So black with 50% transparency, and it seems, or it looks very black or very dark here because all the slides are stacked on top of each other, right? But we are going to separate them, so we can ignore that for now. But before we ignore that, I'm going to have a transition of all 300 milliseconds is actually, let me make that 1 second. Okay, or let me make that ease in out. All right, and once I save, you can see that we have some little animation here, okay, or transition here, because we are going to play with the positions of the slides. So that's why I have this transition, so that we have a cool effect. And it just started raining, guys. It just started raining, so I don't know whether I should pause this and then continue later, but let's see. I hope it doesn't mess with my audio. Now the whole trick to the project is to fill this space, okay, this canvas right here. The whole trick is to fill it with the first two slides, okay. We just have to make those bigger than this, right? So that's the whole trick, honestly. So let's get the so the nth child. We are going to get the first one, the first slide, and the second one as well, okay. And it looks good when it's two, okay. It looks good when you have two slides in the canvas, like occupying this whole space. I hope that makes sense. And that's because when we click the next or the previous, we want something there, like we want something already here before this one animates here. I hope that makes sense. You are going to understand that real soon. So yeah, else we are just going to have that blank space like this. We don't want that. We want an image in the background when we click the previous. All right, so let's go ahead, and for the first and the second slide, I want them to be 0 from the top. So instead of that position that we have it right here, I want them to be right here. I want them to start right here and then expand to this side. So we are actually going to increase the width and the height as well. So from the left is going to be 0 as well, and we are going to transform them and then translate 0, right? Let's give them a width of 100% of the apparent width and a height of 100% as well, and a border radius of 0. We don't want this border radius with these two slides, so we save, and this is what we have. Okay, now as I said, if I showed remove this and then save, you can see that there is the first one, that's the first slide, before we have the second slide sitting on top of it. Okay, so we have only 5 slides here remaining here, right? I hope that makes sense. All right, so now let's target these other slides, these 5 remaining slides. But before that, I'm going to get the first slide and then remove the box shadow. The shadow here is too dark, so I'm just going to set the box shadow here to be none. All right, so we have a better box shadow here. Perfect. So now let's target we have the first and the second one. Let's target the third one. That's the third slide, and position that differently. So with that, we are going to give it a left of 75%. Okay, no, that should be the third. Right, let's get the fourth one, and for that we are going to calculate 75% plus 8.5 rem, and that's going to be the fourth image. Let's target the fifth, and you can just play around with these numbers to see what works for you. All right, we have 17 rem plus 75%. Let's get the seeds image, right here, and that's going to be 25.5 rem. And lastly, our seventh image, okay, which is going to be 75 plus 34. That's what we have. And the seventh image is out of the screen right now because we set the overflow to hidden. You can't see it, right? But if we scroll, you can see the seventh image right here. And I want it just like this, okay? And actually, for the seventh image, you know what? Let me comment this out, okay, for now. And once you are done now, I'll set it to hidden again so that you see what how beautiful it becomes. But for now, I want you to understand everything. So actually, for the seventh image right here, I'm going to set the opacity to 0. Okay, so now you don't see it, but it's there. I hope that makes sense. All right, so for now, let's go ahead, and these details are also they are not going to be shown until they are here, okay, until we position them here, right? So for that, we are going to target the li details. That's the div that wraps around the contents in the slide, and let's give them a position of absolute, a top of 50%, color white, font size of 0.5 rem. Let's see, right? This is what they look like, but I'm going to display them to be none for now. Okay, we don't want them to be shown right now. But for the second slide, which is the slide that shows here, this particular slide, for the second one, I want the details to have a different style. So we display inline block, increase the font size to 0.9 rem, and it's going to be 5 rem from the left. So we save, and this is what we have. Not too bad. And I think that's all for now. Let's go ahead and target the elements in the details. Let me just copy this, and I'm going to target the H1, give it a font size of 3 rem, a text transform of uppercase, and I think that's okay. Maybe give it a font width of 800. You can increase that if you want, but that's okay for me. Let's target the paragraph and give that a width. Give that a width of 25 rem and a font size of 0.8 rem. Okay, so that's for our paragraph. I'm going to target the button here and give that a padding of 0.7 rem for the top and bottom, 1.2 rem for the left and right, border of 0, a margin top of 1.5 rem, and a cursor of pointer. All right, so we save, and this is what we have. Not too bad. Okay, so actually we are basically done with all the styling. Let me create an animation here, a keyframe, okay, for the animation. So at keyframe, I'm going to call that identifier, and it's going to go from an opacity of 0 and a filter blur of 30 pixels, and also a transform scale of 0 to an opacity of 1, because we want to see it, a filter blur of 0, I don't want it to be blurred, and the transform scale is going to be 1. Okay, perfect. All right, so that animation is going to be put on this detail. That's the content here. So let's say animation, the name of the keyframe we are going to use is this identifier, and the duration, let's make it 1 second, is going to be ease and forwards. Perfect. All right, so if I save, you can see we have our little animation. Okay, now let's scroll back up, and okay, we have the transition here, right? So we can actually experiment with this. Okay, let me show you something real quick, and let's go to the elements section. Inside our menu, that's where we have our slides, right? So basically, if I move this first slide down here, right, if I change the position of that slide, then we will have a cool effect here. You just watch. I'll just move this to the end, bam, and then we have it. Okay, I'll move this down here. We have this cool effect, right? So we are just going to play with the position of the elements, and that'll give us this cool effect, right? So let's get back here, and okay, so I think what's remaining is to have the arrows for the previous and the next, and then we will have JavaScript to be able to make this actually work. Okay, so let's get back to our HTML so that we can have arrows, and below the menu that's inside the section, I'm going to have a div with a class of controls, and inside we are going to have our first button with a class of previous, where is going to be the previous button. I'll duplicate that, and it's going to be the next button, right? So let's go ahead, and for the icons, I'm going to use icon scout, and we can go ahead and copy this link, that's the CDN, come back to the head of our HTML. Let me leave a comment here, and then paste that link that we just copied, right? Okay, so let's browse the library, and I'm going to use a free. Okay, so just click free, and I want an arrow. So this is going to be the previous. I don't want the SVG, I just want this icon tag as a code. Come back and then paste it. I'll paste it in the next, and then change this to right, and I think we should be good. All right, so let's get back to our project, and we don't see it, and that is because we have to style it. Okay, we have to style. Basically, this is sitting on top of the icons because this positioned absolute, right? So we have to give some styling to our controls. All right, so back to our CSS. Let's target our controls div, and give it some styling. So I'll position that absolute, and now we have our buttons, right? It's going to be -6 rem from the bottom, and from the left is going to be 50%. And so I'm going to transform it and translate on the x-axis -50%, and I should have it exactly here. Perfect. All right, I think for now I can go ahead and actually set the overflow to be hidden. Okay, you should have an idea what's going on so far. So I'm going to display flex and give a gap of 1.5 rem. All right, now let me target the buttons inside the controls and button. I'm going to set the border to be 0. I don't want a border. The width is going to be 2.4 rem. I'll set the aspect ratio to be 1:1 so that the height and the width are the same. Border radius 50% to make it a cycle. The font size is going to be 1.4 rem, and cursor is going to be pointer. Right, so we save, and this is what we have. Not too bad. All right, let me have a transition here. All 300 milliseconds is just because I'm going to have a hover effect, right? And I'll just change the background to be coral. Perfect. Okay, so transition. Nice. All right, so now we have a cool effect. Perfect. All right, so that's it. Let's head to the JavaScript and then make sure we can actually click these to make this work. Okay, so let's get to our JavaScript and make sure this is actually connected. Perfect. All right, so what do we have to do? We have to get these two buttons, of course. So the previous btn is going to be document query selector. We gave that a class of prev. I'll duplicate this for the next btn, and we give that a class of next, right? All right, now let's get the next btn, and I'm going to add an event listener. It's going to be a click event, and on click we are going to run this anonymous function. Let's get the menu, which has all the LIs or the slice, and let's do query selector here, then get that. It's a menu tag, right? Now let's get all the slice or cards, whatever, document query selector, or because it's not one element, and they are the LIs. Now all we want to do is to all right, let me just show you. Okay, so menu dot append child, and we just want to take the first element, we take it and then put it at the end of the node list. I hope that makes sense, right? So we append child, and then the cards node list, we just add that to the end of the list, right? So with this we can actually click the next, and this actually works perfect. All right, let's get to the previous, and we just do the opposite. Instead of append, we are going to prepend, and it's not going to be the first, but it's going to be the last. So we bring the last element forward, right, to the beginning of the node list. So that will be cards dot length -1. That should give us the last element, prev btn, the previous button. All right, so we can click this, and boom, we have it. For it to look like the finished project, what I'm going to do is to rename this to old assets and create a new folder called assets, and bring this in. Okay, I'm just going to copy this and then bring it in, and we should be good, right? So I save, come back to our current project, and boom, we have it. Perfect. All right, so that is all for this project, and I hope you enjoyed and learned something from this. And that's all, guys. Give this video a like, subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.